The hall went silent. My brand-new husband lurched up from the head table and shot for the side door, too late. His trousers darkened in an instant. Guests froze. Others sputtered into laughter they tried to hide. I rose, tapped my glass, and said, "Please don't worry. Tonight is a double celebration. Our wedding and our divorce." That was the exact moment everything changed. And yes, I planned it. Not out of cruelty, but out of truth. If you want to understand how a bride turns a waltz into a clean break, you have to follow me back a few hours to the part of the day no photographer captured. At 3 in the afternoon, the ballroom smelled like peonies and polish. The quartet rehearsed in the gallery, waiters practiced synchronized pours, and I stood in a white dress that made me look steadier than I felt. I was fixing lipstick in the bridal lounge when the door opened without a knock. A woman I didn't know stepped in. Simple black dress, worn heels, no invitation in her hand. "You don't know me," she said, voice low, but I couldn't watch this happen. She set a phone on the vanity and pressed play. No commentary, no preamble, just a video dated 6 weeks earlier, timestamped 11:34 p.m. Hotel hallway. My fiancé, Daniel, laughing as he swiped a keycard. A woman's hand on his sleeve. The door closing. My mouth went dry. "Who are you?" "Someone who thought I was getting a friend back," she said. "Instead, I got a conscience. The date was the night he told you he was working late. He wasn't. I can tell you the room number, the bar tab, the rideshare times." "I'm sorry." I stared at the screen and felt a memory flare, the odd silence when my texts stacked up unanswered, the way he'd returned the next morning with hotel shampoo in his hair, the tiny branded comb I found in his coat pocket 2 days later. Little alarms I had tamped down because I wanted peace more than doubt. "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because the truth is late," she said. "But it's still the truth." She slid a small envelope across the vanity. Inside, printed screenshots, messages, confirmations, a receipt with his initials. Dates aligned like a row of nails. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. My body, traitorously calm, did inventory. Rings, schedule, speeches, the way my mother's hands had trembled pinning my veil. Canceling the ceremony would explode, 2 families on contact. Letting it proceed like nothing happened would explode me. So I thanked the stranger, tucked the envelope into my clutch, and sat very still until the clock ticked me forward. At 4, the photographer lined us up for first-look pictures we would never frame. Daniel smiled the way men smile when they believe the future is a paved road. I smiled like a woman who understood that roads can be rerouted. At 5, we signed the license. At 6, we said vows. I spoke the truth, that I would honor myself if ever honor were not returned. It sounded romantic in a soft room. It was really a map. At 7, cocktail hour swelled like a tide. I asked the bar captain for a private toast with my husband at the head table before the speeches. He nodded, delighted to help a bride. I made sure the flute poured for Daniel wasn't just champagne. It was a little lesson in natural consequences. A legal, over-the-counter digestive tonic, far stronger than he'd expect on an empty stomach and 2 martinis. I would not humiliate him with details. I would only remove the stage where his performance lived. Then I would speak. I am not proud of the plan. I am not ashamed either. There are cruelties that wear tuxedos. There are kindnesses that carry scalpels. What I chose was neither, a clean, quiet cut that would keep my dignity intact while telling the room the truth it deserved. My maid of honor, Tasha, found me studying the seating chart like it might reveal a kinder universe. "Second thoughts?" she asked. "Second sight," I said. "I see what I should have seen." Tasha searched my face. "Do you want to run?" "No," I said. "I want to stand." From the ballroom I could hear the gentle thunder of ice buckets and laughter, the wheeled hush of covered trays. A planner adjusted the uplights, so the room glowed honey gold. It was a beautiful lie waiting to happen. I did not intend to let it. Before we lined up for introductions, I looked at myself one last time. The dress fit the moment. The woman in it fit the truth. My heart was steady. The envelope was still in my clutch. I tucked a note card beside it and wrote 3 sentences I could deliver without my voice shaking, I know. I chose to finish with grace. I am leaving with it, too. When the doors opened and the crowd stood, I walked in on the arm of a man who didn't yet know the evening belonged to honesty. If you had been there, You would have thought the smiles were real. You would have been half right. At the head table, I signaled for a quiet clink before speeches. 2 flutes arrived. Daniel raised his. To truth, I said. He smiled. I did not expect the universe to cooperate, but sometimes truth is punctual once invited. When the MC announced dinner, Daniel leaned toward me with that familiar, flattering grin. Ready for the easy part? He asked. I nodded and thought, I am ready for the honest part. You should know what the stranger showed me, at least enough to understand my certainty. The video wasn't grainy or ambiguous. The faces were obvious, the date and time a digital stamp no one could argue. There were also messages, brief, breathless, foolish. His tone in them was the same tone he used when pitching me last-minute changes. Confident, performative, sure he could spin discomfort into charm. Seeing those words, I felt the floor stop tilting. Grief would come later. First came clarity. People imagine fury is loud. Mine was quiet, practical, a locked door with a key that turned only once. I decided 3 things. I would not be cruel to his family, who were about to learn they had celebrated the wrong man. I would not abandon my mother to handle whispers alone. And I would not let him write the story of this night. The ballroom had been our compromise, his taste for spectacle softened by my insistence on warmth. Long tables threaded with eucalyptus, linen the color of cream, a ceiling draped in soft lights that made everyone look kinder. Place cards curled like small banners. I had chosen the menu for comfort: roast chicken, seasonal vegetables, sourdough served warm, so people would linger. The kindness built into those choices kept me from detonating the entire event. Kindness was still what I wanted to leave behind. At the head table, Daniel played the host he loved to be, touching shoulders, accepting compliments on the playlist, winking at the photographer. Whenever his hand found mine, my finger felt the coolness of the ring, and I let it remind me, promises mean something or they mean nothing. There is no middle column. The toast began. Tasha spoke first, a braid of humor and loyalty that moved the room the way a good song does. Daniel's best man followed with practiced charm. People laughed, dabbed eyes, raised glasses. I sat in the light and waited for the moment when my own words would be required, each second stretching thin as sugar. Midway through the salad course, Daniel touched his stomach and chuckled. Shouldn't have skipped lunch, he murmured. I smiled politely. The bar captain glided past, topping off flutes. Across the room, the woman from the lounge stood near a column, unobtrusive, her eyes on me, not hungry for drama, not gloating, just present. I gave her the smallest nod I've ever given anyone. It felt like 2 strangers signing a treaty across a very long table. My plan wasn't the point. The point was the sentence I had written on the note card. Still, bodies are ways truth speaks when mouths refuse. Daniel's face picked up a sheen. He shifted in his chair, tried to laugh again, and failed to find the note. The best man leaned in, asked a quiet question. Daniel waved him off with a grin that showed a whisper of worry. I thought of the specific night 6 weeks earlier, the storm that had rattled the windows, the message that said he was stuck at the office even though the power at his building had gone out. I remember the rain on the pavement the next morning, and how he had smelled like a place I didn't know. Memory is not a judge, it is a witness. Tonight it sat beside me, steady and reliable. The MC tapped the mic gently. And now, a few words from our bride. My heart did not pound. I stood, smoothed the dress that still felt like armor, and held the room with a smile. Somewhere behind the eyes of half those guests were scripts about what a bride should say. Gratitude to parents, admiration for her husband, a charming story about how we met. Instead, I told a different kind of truth, the kind that makes a room remember how to listen. I was taught that love is keeping promises in public and in private, I began. That it's more verb than noun, more choice than accident. Honesty is the oxygen of a home. Heads tilted, phones lowered. So tonight I thank those who taught me honesty, my mother, my friends, and I promise to practice it even when it costs. Daniel dabbed his forehead with a napkin, offered a thin smile. The first real fissure. Humidity gathered under the lights. The room leaned in. I also learned that when truth knocks, you open the door, I said. Even if it's late. Even if the house looks perfect. A ripple moved through the nearest tables. Tasha straightened. Daniel's mother went still. I could have laid evidence on linen then and there, but grace is choreography. So I thanked everyone, closed my card, and said I'd speak again after dessert. Laughter loosened the room. Daniel squeezed my hand. His didn't quite land. I sat, smiling, and let the evening flow like a river that already knows the sea. Across the room, the woman by the column watched. The lead-polished flutes. The thing about a room full of witnesses is that it teaches you restraint. You can't control what people will say later, but you can decide what they see now. I wanted them to see a woman steady enough to choose the right kind of ending. The kitchen doors swung like metronomes as courses came and went. Daniel laughed on cue, but his laugh had lost its bass. He loosened his collar. He asked for water. Tasha's eyes found mine with a question. I answered with a tiny shake of my head. This was not a crisis for her to manage. This was a truth arriving under its own power. When dessert, or what should have been dessert, hovered at the threshold, the MC leaned in with the timing we'd arranged. "Before we cut the cake," he said brightly, "the bride and groom would like a private toast." A small, delighted who warmed the room. The staff stepped back. A bubble formed around the head table. The bar lead set down 2 fresh flutes and retreated like a stagehand. Daniel lifted his glass, smile rehanging itself. "To us," he said. "To the life we're starting." "To truth," I said, the word so quiet I felt it more than heard it. We drank. I took a courteous sip. He drained half, set the glass down, and blinked like someone adjusting to light. A beat passed. Another. A clock somewhere clicked very loudly in my head. "You okay?" the best man murmured. Daniel nodded, then pressed his palm to his midsection as if calming a child. "Fine," he said, and tried to stand. The room swayed for him, though the floor stayed still. He sat back down, smiled wider, overcompensated. People laughed with him, eager to keep the night polished. I let them. The microphones waited like patient birds. I rose again when the MC offered me the room, positioned my note card on the linen, and breathed in the soft hush only a microphone can make. Tasha squeezed my shoulder as she passed behind me. I did not look at Daniel. "I meant what I said earlier," I began. "Love is honesty with its sleeves rolled up. It is not afraid of daylight." Somewhere a fork chimed against a plate and then stilled. "So I want to tell you a story about daylight." I spoke about tiny alarms that we hush with our own hands. About the way doubt can feel like disloyalty when you love someone brave enough to borrow your faith. About how easy it is to confuse charm with character, momentum with meaning. I didn't say his name. I didn't have to. A few heads bowed as if in church. Daniel shifted again, deeper this time, as if his chair had grown thorns. His forehead shone. He nodded too vigorously at a joke, and then winced. The band leader, sensing a change in weather, adjusted the lights a fraction. Warmth fell a notch. I closed my card and set it aside. I would not read from paper when truth wanted eye contact. "There are documents," I said simply. "There are dates and times. There are rooms and receipts. And there is a bride who believes herself." The sentence sat in the center of the room and refused to move. I turned my head, slowly, gently, toward Daniel. He smiled, a punishing effort, and dabbed his face again. In that instant I saw the man I had loved for 3 years and the boy he had never stopped being. Both looked afraid of the same thing, consequences. "I'll be right back," he said to no one and to everyone, and pushed his chair away from the table. His father half rose. His mother whispered his name. The aisle between tables opened like a path cut in tall grass. He took 3 steps, then another, the way people do when they're hoping motion will solve what stillness has started. A server flattened against the wall to let him pass. Laughter hiccuped and died. Tasha appeared at my elbow. "Say the word," she breathed. "I already did," I said. "Let it land." I watched the stranger by the column. She wasn't gloating, only relieved, like someone who finally handed off a heavy box. Our eyes met. "You own it now," her look seemed to say. The MC hovered. "Should we?" "Let the evening tell the truth," I answered. "I'll speak when it's time." From the corridor came a hush of hotel air. Daniel paused at the door, hand on the panic bar. He glanced back at me. The room drew its breath. I didn't flinch. I had done my grieving in the bridal lounge with a stranger, a phone, and a folder of times that matched my memory. What remained now was ceremony, not vows, but consequences and relief. Behind me, Cake glowed under glass, a sugar version of a future I no longer intended to eat. The topper tilted a fraction. Maybe figurines know before we admit it. Do you want me to take the mic? Tasha whispered. No, I said. First the room understands. Then I'll speak. The guests arranged their faces into concern. A few leaned close with unfinished questions. The best man tried a joke and got only his echo. I remembered what my mother told me when I was 13. If you live with a story that isn't true, you live in a house that isn't yours. Tonight I was moving back in. He moved, then stopped, then the moment from the beginning of this story finally arrived. The hall went still enough to hear the air conditioning breathe. Daniel's face drained of color. He took 2 quick steps, reached for the door too late. His trousers darkened like a storm rolling across a field. A collective gasp lifted the ceiling an inch. Someone laughed, then swallowed the sound. A cousin coughed into his napkin. The band looked at their shoes. I stood. The mic waited and I took it. Please don't be alarmed, I said, and heard my own voice return from the corners of the room, calm and clear. Tonight is a double celebration, our wedding and our divorce. The words rearranged the furniture inside 100 minds. A few guests blinked fast. A woman at the back whispered, "Oh," like a truth had found its way home. I wasn't cruel. I was precise. I learned something today, I continued. A woman I did not know came to me before the ceremony. She brought proof, video, timestamps, receipts. 6 weeks ago, on a night I was told was late at the office, a different hotel was involved. I let that land, then softened it. I'm not here to shame anyone's body. I'm here to name a choice. A murmur moved, then quieted. The best man pressed his mouth into a line. Daniel's parents stared at the tablecloth, as if it could lift them out. Marriage is a promise you keep when no one is watching, I said. I kept mine. Someone else did not. So tonight I'm keeping a different promise, the one I made to myself long before I met him. I held up the envelope the stranger had given me, not as spectacle but as punctuation. These are copies, I said. The originals are already where they need to be. I nodded toward Tasha, who was, in fact, sitting with my mother in a tidy legal folder. We've all been taught to applaud a good performance. I prefer we applaud better choices. I slipped off my ring and set it on the linen like a period. Not thrown, not flung. Just finished. For anyone worried about logistics, I added, because the practical among us deserve mercy, please stay and eat. The kitchen worked hard. The band knows every song you grew up dancing to. Celebrate love you trust. I'll be stepping away now. A few people clapped, tentative, then sturdier. Others sat in silence, tears bright, anger honest. It is a startling thing, watching a room decide to respect a boundary. You can feel the mechanics of it, like a safe unlocking. I handed the mic back to the MC, squeezed Tasha's hand as I passed, and walked toward the side door that Daniel had almost reached. I wasn't going to find him. I was going to find myself some air, and then my mother, who deserved to hear directly from me. In the corridor, the stranger waited, hands clasped, eyes apologetic and steady. You were brave, she said. I was awake, I said. Brave might come later. For what it's worth, she added. He told her he was engaged. She didn't believe him at first. She ended it after the hotel. She thought she was coming back to warn a friend. She warned a stranger instead. I nodded. I didn't need a villain to feel whole. I needed a beginning that fit the truth. When I re-entered the ballroom, the world hadn't cracked open, it had simply rearranged. The band slid into a bright, harmless standard. People stood, stretched, conferred softly, then turned toward the buffet like pilgrims choosing a new road. My mother reached me with a grace you only see in people who've carried heavy things a long time. She took my face in both hands. You did right, she whispered. We go home together. Tasha walked beside us toward the service hallway. I'll pack your things, she said. I texted the hotel. They're moving your luggage. I also canceled the morning after brunch. She grinned, feral and kind. I told them the bride recommended sleep. Outside, night had pooled into the courtyard. The fountain kept doing its honest work. I sat on the stone wall and let the air rinse the noise from my skin. Beyond the hedge, someone laughed the relieved laugh of people salvaging a party. A few stubborn stars held their ground above the city. My phone buzzed. From Dad, proud of you. From a colleague, spare room if you need it. Tasha brought my clutch and water and didn't try to fill the silence. Tomorrow, she said at last, we talk to council. Tonight we breathe. I'm okay, I said. Sad but okay. Inside, the band slid into Motown. Guests cheered, grateful for a script that didn't require choosing sides. I didn't delete the first look photo. I didn't need to punish the past to trust the future. We re-entered to find my mother speaking softly to his, both women older than the story ahead. For a moment it looked like grace can pass hand to hand if no one squeezes too hard. I thanked the staff, asked the band to keep things bright, and let the elevator close. I would sleep alone and wake knowing I chose honesty while there was still time. I exhaled. Morning came like a clean page. The city was gray-blue, quiet in that way hotels are when most people are still asleep and staff are restoring the world to default. I lay for a minute listening to the hush of the air system and the small clink of a cart in the hallway. My dress hung over a chair, a monument to a plan that had not survived first contact with truth. I texted my father, coffee? He answered in seconds. Lobby in 10. Tasha had already left notes on the desk. Times, names, a list of things she and my mother had collected. There was also a folded card from the planner. You handled last night with grace. If you need statements from staff, we're here. I held the card and felt something soften in my chest. Kindness is a ledger, too. Dad and I sat with styrofoam cups and the sort of pastries that look hopeful until you taste them. He didn't say, I told you. He didn't say anything that put him on the right side of a story that had many wrong turns. He just asked how I slept and waited for an answer that took more than a sentence. I'm sad, I said finally. I'm relieved. I don't feel humiliated. I feel finished. He nodded. Finished is a good place to start from. The attorney Tasha had found met us at 10. She was brisk without being cold. A woman who had likely sat across from many brides and not brides and the tired parents of both. We talked about options. Annulment versus divorce. Timelines. What to do with gifts. How to handle the fact that the marriage, as a legal fact, had barely existed for the length of a work shift. You don't have to make every decision this week, she said. You just have to make the next good one. At noon my phone vibrated with a call from Daniel that I didn't answer. A text followed, then another. By 2, he sent one that said simply, I'm sorry. By 3, please talk to me. At 4, a long paragraph about explanations and mistakes and the difficulty of modern life, which might as well be a template some people have saved for emergencies. I wrote back, meet me tomorrow at the park, 9 a.m. with no audience. We will say everything we need to say there. He agreed. The rest of the day was logistics. I went home with my parents, sat at the kitchen table where I'd learned to do long division, and wrote 15 thank you notes to people who had loved me more in 12 hours than I had let them for 12 months. I returned the cake knife. I emailed the vendor who had monogram napkins and asked if he could recycle the initials. He said he knew a shelter that could use them. It felt good to send something soft into the world. Night came gentler than I expected. I slept hard and even, like someone who had paid a debt. At dawn the park smelled like wet grass and coffee. Daniel arrived looking smaller in daylight, in jeans and contrition. He began with the speech I had predicted. I messed up. It didn't mean anything. It won't happen again. Please don't erase us. I listened. It is possible to listen without believing, to witness without accepting. Why? I asked when he ran out of syllables. Because I thought I could, he said, and then flinched at hearing it out loud. Because I was stupid. Because I liked being liked. Was it the only time? He looked at his shoes. No. The honesty blistered and then cooled. I felt mercy for the boy who had never learned how to be a man without applause. I felt nothing for the man who had asked me to be a mirror and then blamed the reflection. This is the part, I said, where we thank each other for the good memories and become two separate people. He nodded, not because he wanted to, but because he could finally see the shore and understood the distance. We walked one lap of the path in near silence. When we reached the parking lot, he said, I hope you tell a kind version. I will tell the true one, I answered. Sometimes those are the same. He left. I stood under a maple tree and let the sun work on me like a bomb. By afternoon, messages stacked like books. A cousin sent a photo from last week's barn dance. You still owe me a rematch. My principal wrote that the lounge had discussed the way you handled yourself. Daniel's mother called. She didn't defend him or indict me. She apologized for her sharp edges, said she built a scaffold of appearances. You don't owe me forgiveness, she said. But I'm practicing the kind that doesn't need permission. Near sunset, the stranger texted, I hope your next chapter has fewer footnotes and more exclamation points. I replied, thank you. I hope yours does too. I took the dress to a consignment shop that donates to a fund for women starting over. We'll make sure this helps someone, the clerk said. I walked home lighter. Before bed, I opened the envelope again, not to wound myself, but to confirm I hadn't imagined anything. The dates still aligned, the room still matched the hotel. I filed it with the license. Even endings have folders. That felt right. I slept okay. People ask me now if I regret the way I ended it. They ask in careful voices, as if the answer might explode between us. I tell them the same thing every time. I regret the part where I did not believe myself fast enough. I do not regret the part where I did. The first is a sorrow, the second is a boundary. My students sometimes notice the new ringless place on my hand and say nothing at all, which is its own form of kindness. Parents at school pick up, shake my hand, and ask about the curriculum, and then slip in, as softly as buttering bread, I heard you gave a very good speech. The grocer asks if I found everything I needed, and then adds an extra bunch of tulips when he thinks I'm not looking. The Midwest has its own complex grammar of care. It is fluent in casseroles and door-holding, in nods that last exactly long enough to say I'm here. Tasha visits on Sundays with a deck of cards and a commitment to losing at least twice, because she claims the universe likes balance. My mother pretends she didn't keep every article and screenshot, but when she dusts the bookshelf I see the stack and leave it right where it is. Dad fixes a loose hinge on my gate, replaces the porch light with one that turns on by itself at dusk, and never once says a word about the night I said 2 true things into a microphone. As for Daniel, he moved cities. I don't know if he found the kind of courage that doesn't depend on an audience. I hope he did. That hope is not for him. It is for whoever stands near him next. May she receive what she's promised. May he learn that applause isn't love, keeping your word is. I kept expecting the hook of a story, the dramatic bit people retell, to calcify into something small and mean. It didn't. When the scene replays in my head, it's not the comedy of a man running for a door, or the murmur that follows a misstep. It's the quiet after I said the sentence that set me free. Tonight is a double celebration. If there is humor in the moment, it belongs to the universe, which has always loved timing. My part was not to humiliate, but to draw a bright line around what does and doesn't belong in a life built on honesty. Sometimes I think about the uninvited guest, the messenger whose courage complicated my life and saved it at once. Maybe she is someone's new friend now, or maybe she went home and finally slept. Maybe she is also telling a story in 6 parts. The arrival, the evidence, the knock, the door opening, the breath, the light. There are things I kept. The dress receipts, because transparency is a habit. The place cards with names that remind me who showed up. The program with the chocolate thumbprint, because it still makes me laugh. And there are things I let go. The playlist, the monogram, the hollow future that fit like a costume. If you are reading this and wondering whether a story like mine ends only with exit, here is the part people forget. Endings are elastic. They snap back into place when you treat them gently. In the months since, I've learned to like my house's new quiet, to water plants that don't demand applause, to cook for one and invite friends anyway. I walked the same hotel corridor once with Tasha on the way to a conference, and we both laughed so hard at the symmetry that the elevator almost closed on us. You can miss nothing and still be grateful. And yet, I still begin the story the same way when I tell it. I don't sanitize the frame. I let the first image land before any of the footnotes. A room holding its breath. A groom up too fast, headed for a door he won't reach in time. A collective gasp, a bride at a microphone. I keep that opening not because I relish anyone's discomfort, but because it reminds me that truth arrives with a sense of occasion when you give it the stage. People call what I did revenge. If that word helps them carry the story, I don't argue. To me it felt simpler and better, accountability with manners. I didn't shout, I didn't throw, I didn't scorch the earth. I handed the truth a microphone, offered everyone dinner, and stepped into a night that felt like fresh air. When I lie in bed now and think about the promise I made, it is not the vow in front of the officiant that I hear. It is the older vow, the one a girl makes to herself long before the dress or the guest list. I will not leave myself behind to be loved. I will tell the truth, even if it arrives late. I will keep my own hand. So yes, the hall went silent. My brand new husband lurched up from the head table and shot for the side door, too late. His trousers darkened in an instant. Guests froze, others tried not to laugh. I rose, tapped my glass, and said, "Please don't worry. Tonight is a double celebration, our wedding and our divorce." Then I walked toward the door that leads to the rest of my life and did not look back. On some nights I hear the clink of glassware and the hush that followed. It doesn't haunt me. It blesses me. I crossed. I am exactly where I meant to arrive now.